Welcome to the podcast. The Aging Queen. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to another wonderful episode of The Aging Queen. Here with the lovely Dr. Kristen. Hey, doctor.
Hi, hello.
Hey, welcome. So today we don't really have a specific topic to discuss. I do have some things that I would love to chat through with you. One of them, has to do more with self-esteem and the imposter syndrome. Have you heard of the imposter syndrome
No, I
lately?
haven't. Is it like
Yeah,
fake it till you make it?
it kind of is. It's
Oh,
I guess it's one of these things that's going around with the Gen Zers, but it's that feeling you get that even if you are totally qualified and you win um all these awards for whatever you do, you still feel like you don't deserve it, and that you're not good enough. And so there's just, it's people have even discussed it, that they've won Oscars. Actors have said, they feel like they didn't deserve it, even though they got it, and they've worked hard for it, and everyone else thinks they deserve it. So it's kind of like a new age syndrome, but everyone's always probably had it. We just have a name for it now. It's called the imposter syndrome.
yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Some people are cocky and arrogant and think they're fantastic even when they're not. And some
Yeah.
people are great but can't recognize their own achievements. The human condition is on a huge spectrum.
Yeah.
Um, I think uh, like a healthy appreciation for who you are, for what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, like having insight
Mm,
into who you are, is very healthy. Like being able to be proud of your accomplishments and feel like you have self-worth for the things that
mhm.
you've accomplished is very healthy. But then also having some degree of humility and realizing that you're not always right,
Right.
is also healthy. So the happiness is in the middle, but but what you're describing is sort of one end of the spectrum.
Right.
And the other end is like arrogance, unfounded arrogance.
Yeah, doesn't that seem, I mean, it seems to be that you have to find that balance, because when things go right, you get a little cocky, you get a little um arrogant, and full of yourself. And when things go wrong, you start feeling like they're going to go wrong forever, right?
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because you're right. Like sometimes our tendencies are to over dramatize.
Yeah.
Like you hit one obstacle and you're like, "Oh my god, like this whole thing is going to fall apart. I can't, it's
I
all
can't
it's
go
it's
move
all
forward.
lost."
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're kind of describing that like over dramatizing the situation, but I think like part of maturity, I think, is like realizing that these little obstacles that you encounter are not that they're surmountable, and that
Mhm.
just because you've hit one obstacle doesn't necessarily mean you'll hit more. But if you do, you can surmount those like you've surmounted the previous ones. And that kind of confidence in yourself,
Yeah.
and that's confidence that's built on actual achievement. It's not like false confidence or hollow confidence.
Right.
It's confidence that you actually is built on your previous successes. So it's like earned confidence, I guess.
Yeah.
That helps propel you forward and be successful because then you aren't afraid to try and overcome challenges instead of just giving up.
It's about small wins.
Yeah.
That's what helps me, is when things feel overwhelming, or like I just can't, I don't know where to start. I just do the things that are easier first, because I get the small wins, and I get a taste of being productive, a taste of winning, and a taste of organization. and that's
Mhm.
then you feel good about yourself. It's like I think for the negative and the positive, it's all about the snowball effect.
Yeah, I agree. It's like that little endorphin hit that I get
Yeah.
from crossing something off my to-do list.
Oh, I love that. I love to do
You
this.
know? Yeah, and I keep a to-do list because I have a terrible memory, and so
Mm.
I have to write things down or else I will forget. But, like, when I've had a rough day or when I've had a bad day or, like, when I've disappointed myself in some way,
Yeah.
like tonight I missed a flight and I was really annoyed at myself. So I came
No.
home and I knocked a few small things off my to-do list so that I could feel a little bit better.
To
I
balance
literally
myself
did
out.
that. Like small things, like, send this email to this thing, that I've been meaning to send.
Right.
So, but yeah, so it's, you
No,
can, it
others
feels
would pick
good.
whiskey and, but you're like, I'm gonna knock some productivity, things
Yeah.
out of the way, which is good,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's
Um,
funny.
I think those are healthy habits, right? And, those small wins made you feel better.
Mhm. They did. I felt like I've accomplished something. So yes, I felt better, a little bit better. Um yeah.
Yeah, so and I'm also a big believer that things come to you when you're ready, and if things come to you when you're not ready is when it becomes stressful, and it's when you, um, can't really, embrace it fully, and maybe more of that imposter syndrome comes in because you feel like you don't deserve it. Maybe it came in you do deserve it, just came in a little early, you know? Sometimes those people that get success early on, uh, they they mess it up because
Mhm.
they don't value it. They take it for granted, or it scares them and it's overwhelming because they had it way too early, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think uh I've just been thinking a lot about this imposter syndrome and how you can manage your thoughts better because sometimes we are our own worst enemies and we make things we blow things out of proportion, we make things bigger than they are, and sometimes also think that people are judging us when they don't even care about us. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. People I think one nice thing that you can kind of do for a friend, maybe, like I could do for you, for example, like when you have accomplished something, when
Yes,
you have, done even just something that's like small, like
there's
you
podcasts.
know yeah, well, you did a podcast, like or when you started this podcast, or like when you signed someone important, or when you signed someone onto a new movie. Like I can say, like, hey Lewis, like I'm really proud of you and you should be proud of yourself too.
Right.
Like you should be proud of yourself. This is like a win. This is a
Yeah.
solid win. And so maybe it fosters in people, not necessarily you, but maybe in people who have a hard time recognizing their wins or being proud of their wins.
Right.
Like it kind of starts instilling that, you know what, this is a win. I should be proud of myself.
Right.
Um, because that's what parents are supposed to do for kids. Like
Right.
they're supposed to say, "Hey, I'm proud of you. You should be proud of yourself too." Because if they just say, "I'm proud of
Encouragement.
you,"
Yeah.
yeah, well, if they just say, "I'm proud of you," it's possible that the child can grow up seeking that external gratification
Right.
from others being proud of them, from others being happy with them.
And then
But if the
you're a constant seeker of
right of
praise.
external, of external praise, but like, the ideal is for a parent to instill in the child
Yeah.
this idea of like, I am proud of myself, like I'm pleased with myself for having done this, like this internal sense of value and of fulfillment. And so it's hard to and so like, if you have a friend that you feel like is not able to recognize their own accomplishments, you could kind of play that role of a parent a little bit. And it's like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
really proud of you, and you should also be really proud of yourself.
I'm very supportive with my friends. I
Mhm.
always like giving compliments and, letting them know that they've done a great job when they have, you know?
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
some friends that aren't very supportive, and, but they're still my friends, and it one of them in specific, um, in particular, one friend, I didn't realize that they were the jealous type. And
Mm.
what I mean by that is they're not jealous of the things you have and because they want it. It's they're jealous because they don't feel you either deserve any of these things you have or they wish you didn't have them.
Hmm.
And these are kind of toxic traits because
Yeah.
they're almost like frenemies, you know, and
Mhm.
it builds a competitive, relationship, and then you feed into that, and it becomes quite toxic real quick. So yeah, I just have you had any experience with that in your friendships?
No, I haven't, because I have, like, no tolerance for that kinda
Yeah,
stuff, and so if I detect any semblance of that, or if someone's catty, like, women can be catty sometimes or petty,
right.
I just immediately, no, we don't I don't ever develop a friendship with that person.
Well, you know, the thing is that they're just how can I say it? They're not it's very hard to detect it because
Mm.
when you talk about your achievements, they don't give you the praise. They'll listen to you. They may add to the conversation, but deep down inside, they're not saying congratulations, and they're hoping that you don't go further because it makes them feel worse about themselves. So,
Are you sure that's what the intention is? Or are they
um,
just, because, like, there's a difference between them just not being very vocal and praising you
yeah,
versus them actually, like, uh, them actually being, feeling, like, jealous that you succeeded.
yeah. I mean, I've asked these couple of the people, you know, one in particular, and they've said it. They're like, "Yeah,
Oh.
makes me feel worse about myself if people
Oh,
succeed
okay.
around me."
Jeez. Ugh.
Yeah. So it's I can't I can't even that's why it took me a long time to realize. I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I just I don't understand that thinking because I want everyone around me to be more successful than me. I want everyone around me to you know, to have abundance and feel positive about their future, and I would never I mean, yeah, some things sting. Some things do kind of like, okay, make you take a step back and make you readjust some of your goals, but they're also motivating you, you know. Like right now I'm trying to get into the stock market and trying to invest more. And a couple of my friends have really told me step by step of what you need to do. And you need to get this account and do this and watch out for that. And it's helpful. And they're trying to raise you to the same level they are with that. Right. And I think that's great. And that's what friendships are there for. Um, you know, but sometimes people have their own bring their own issues and hang-ups to a relationship, and you just have to the big question, I guess, is would you break up with this friend because of it, or would you just manage what you say around them?
That's a good question. I probably Is it the only area in which they display pettiness?
Yes.
Okay. Then I would just manage what I say around them.
Like everything else are wonderful friends.
Yeah. Then I would just manage what I say around them. I mean, for two reasons. Number one, mostly because I would, now that I know that they have this jealous side to them,
Mhm.
it's going to irritate me going forward. And so I want to just avoid being around that bad side of them. So
Right.
I would not bring up things that I thought would make them jealous.
Right.
And
Would you
and
stop
I
hanging out with them as much?
no, no, I mean, no, if it was really just that if it was that one area,
That
then
you know that it's more about them than you, because it's really their own self-esteem issues.
right, it's completely their own insecurity. And they should recognize that it's like their insecurity, their problem,
Yes.
and they should work on it themselves and practice being supportive of others. Even if
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
actually feel it, they should say the words anyway,
Yeah.
just to be like a normal part of society and get in the practice of supporting others.
Right.
And then maybe them actually feeling it will follow the words at some point in the future.
Fake it till you make it.
But yeah, exactly, exactly. But that's, yeah, it's all them. It's their insecurity. I mean, I also wouldn't, if I really cared about them as a friend, I also wouldn't want them to feel bad. So if it just meant I shouldn't bring up the fact that you know, that my boss said something nice about me at work today, or that I got a good grade in a test or whatever it is, then if I just shouldn't bring those things up then. And if it's a small part of my life to begin with, then it's fine, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, I think yeah, it's hard because I'm a type of person that wants to share, especially the positive stuff and the positive achievements, and because you know life isn't easy, things aren't easy to get, and things and achievements are not
Yeah.
sometimes it's just surprises yourself. You're like, okay, I worked really hard, or I trained for this, or I overcame this obstacle, and I wanted
Mhm.
to share it with you. And for them, they might
Yeah.
seem like it's you're gloating, or you're
Yeah.
you know
I mean, also I think part of it, I understand what you're saying, but I also think in part, like, it's kind of an interesting question to ask yourself, like, why do you need other people to praise you? Like,
right.
you knowing that you did a good job, I mean, that should be like 85%, and then of your happiness. And then maybe, I'm just making these numbers up, then maybe 15% should
Yeah.
be from external, but like, you really should, like, so why do you think that's so important to you in the first place?
That's a really good question, and actually, I don't do it as much now, but when I was younger, and you probably know this because you were one of them, I would go to all my friends, and when I had, I wouldn't say major decisions too, but also smaller and medium-sized decisions, I would ask for opinions and kinda take like a poll. I would say, "What
Yeah.
do you think about this? What do you think if I got, a piercing?" Let's say. And I would kind of ask, and in my mind, I would put their response up against to as much as respect that I have for them.
Oh,
And I would
okay.
judge
Well,
that.
that's funny. That's
Yeah,
funny.
so I would kinda calculate that, and I would say, okay." So, if I didn't have that much respect for them and I didn't like their answer, I'd be like, it's alright." You know?
Right, 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 right. Exactly. It wasn't what I wanted to hear, and dismissed.
And
Dismissed.
yeah, dismissed. Yeah, that one's but then and then at the end of the whole thing, I would say, "Okay, I got 10 answers, 3 went this way, 7 went that way, and though from these people I respect, those I kind of don't." And, then some I would ask strangers. So asking other people is how I would gather, um info to make decisions when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
You've never done this? Or have you
Um,
always just gotten with
no,
your
not really.
gut
I've always
feeling?
kind of just gone with my gut. I've always sort of just been a one woman show. But like, I mean, there's been times, of course, where I'm sure I had to have asked, you know, people their opinions on things, and then took
Mhm.
it, and then considered it in my overall decision. But no, in general, that's not how I operate. But I do know that it's normal. But asking their opinion is different than seeking their praise.
Mm.
Like you're seeking these people, like today in modern day, you're seeking this friend's praise. Um,
Yes, that person that we were discussing earlier, yes, I would have loved for them to, because I respect them and we're good friends, but I would love for them to be more vocal in their praise and
yeah.
more of a cheerleader because that's what I do for them, you know? And
Oh,
that's
mm,
I just feel like it's one-sided and
yeah.
it's turned into almost kinda like I don't feel like sharing anything anymore because
Yeah.
I'll get jinxed or something, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I have friends that are a little bit similar. Like, I don't know. It's a challenge. It's challenging.
It's
I mean,
challenging.
if everything else about the friend is good, then it's just a friend. It isn't like it's your lover or your partner or
Yeah,
like it's just a friend. Like you can, I would manage. I would just manage it the
right.
best you can, and just not expect that they're going to give you a lot of praise.
Right. Just kinda
And
know
maybe don't
once
go
you
to
know.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you have good news, you can come to me instead. I'll
Alright,
praise you all the time. I'll praise you.
I'll let you know. I'll be like, "Yeah, look, I got a A in spelling bee."
Right.
I mean, I do think it comes down to were you praised as a kid by your parents for
I think
achieving?
I must have been.
Mm.
Well, I know I have to have been because I see how my parents praise my nieces and nephews, so how they praise their grandkids.
Uh-huh.
And that must have been how they were with us because me and all of my siblings, we all grew up with a lot of
Mhm.
confidence.
Right. Wow.
And I see like, you never really question why you are the way you are. You just, but then I see how my parents interact with my nieces and nephews, their grandkids,
Mhm.
and like all day long they're like, "Oh, that's so great, Emma. Like you're so smart for having thought of that, Emma." Like so this little girl, from day zero, from birth, she has been reinforced over and over again how she's so smart, how she's, how everything she does is so good. And so she was so I'm sure that's how my parents were with me
That's
too.
that's great to know. I mean, it's,
So we were
for
yeah.
me personally, I feel I don't remember so much when I was little, but I feel like any kind of praise that came, um was when I was older,
Mm,
probably high school and above, and not so much when I was younger. I'm the youngest of 4, and the age difference between my sisters and I is pretty vast. So I always kind of felt I honestly, I always felt neglected. I mean, I always felt like an afterthought, but it's because when you have siblings or people think that you, um were raised together and it's no, I was only really raised with one of them. I mean, when I was very little, yes, it was all 4 of us. But you gotta think one the youngest of the oldest is 8-year difference. So
yeah.
when I was 8, they were already 16. They don't care about you. They're trying to,
Mhm.
figure out their teenage lives.
Mhm.
So I was just a little kid, kind of like a nuisance to them. Um, so there's that sense of neglect that I've kind of gotten over. Um, but when you're the youngest, you're kind of afterthought,
Yeah.
because your siblings aren't there anymore. They left the house, and your parents, they're not really focused on you. They're focused on raising you and moving on because they've already raised 3 kids. So yeah, I
But
think it
like
happens when you're little, probably.
yeah. Well, words of affirmation is one of the love languages.
Right.
Like one of those 5 love languages that people talk about.
Mhm.
And so like, saying nice things to people, like
Mhm.
praising them, telling them that they, you know, were so like, it was so great that they thought of this thing to do at work
Right.
and, all so that's and I think people who this is just my theory, but I think people whose love language is words of affirmation, I think that probably they grew up with parents who said lots of words of affirmation to them, and
Right.
that's how they experienced love from their parents. through words.
Mhm.
And so that's when, so as an adult, when they're looking for love, they equate it with kind words, with
Mhm.
supportive words. And so they look for a partner who gives them love in that way in which they can recognize it as love. And so
Right.
I kind of think, however, your parents showed you love as a child is what becomes your love language as an adult, which
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, but is that, would you say that words of
I think it'd
affirmation
be
is
giving
your
gifts.
love language?
I think is gifts and money. I would say
Nah, yours
'cause
is gifts and money.
yeah. I mean, I would say the most exciting times I've shared with my family, well, Christmas and stuff, gift giving, but also, like, getting ready for school, and they take you out, and you can buy whatever you want, and I'm a spoiled little kid. I mean, I was a spoiled kid, and I still am spoiled by my family. They're great, I love them to death, no one's perfect. You do kinda drag with you in life, in your adult life, some things from your past, and that's normal, everyone has it, you probably just don't know the way, what it is, but it makes you the way you are. But yeah, I think for me, it was when they did kind of pay attention to me as a little kid, I would say it would be more of like giving gifts or going
Mm,
shopping, or it wasn't really helping with homework or praising.
mm,
So I like to give gifts. So you're right. I
mm,
I like to surprise. I don't like giving gifts on your birthday. I like to surprise you
mm.
because that's how I was surprised. It was kind of like,
Hmm.
um, "Hey, let's go to this," or trips, because we would take as a family these spontaneous impromptu trips to wonderful places. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and we didn't plan. I mean, my parents didn't plan for that. It was like we knew on Friday we were leaving for the weekend.
Oh, wow. That's so great. That is so much fun.
Yeah, so I like those, spontaneous, kind of trips in my life. I love gift giving, and that's how I, uh, share things with people and declare love, and, that's my love language, I would say.
Mhm. Mhm. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I also like praising people and giving them their, their their dues. If they put in the
Yeah.
work and they achieve
Yeah.
this, then they should get their praise.
I
Um
think that's great. I think that's good. It's the mark of a supportive friend. It's the mark of a supportive partner. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was kinda naive because it took me almost until my 40s to really realize that there are people out there that aren't like you, and
Yeah.
they don't want to see you succeed, and they actually and it's all about them, it's not about you.
Yeah,
And whether they're friends
petty
or
people.
yeah, whether they're friends or not, um, there's people that do not wanna see you succeed. That's the honest truth. And that's
Yeah.
pretty sad, and then those are the people you kinda don't wanna share things with. There's a saying out there that until things are done and achieved, you shouldn't share with people because
No.
no?
Really?
I mean, there's a whole little thing out there, a little camp of people that think
Huh.
you shouldn't share your plans with anyone.
Because for what purpose? Because
Yeah, you get
someone will
bad vibe,
copy it?
bad wuju, bad energy. Some could copy
Oh.
it. Some could throw daggers towards you, or try to
Oh.
ruin the plans just out of jealousy.
I
Yeah.
I mean,
Look at this spider
I don't
web of
know.
lies we live in.
Yeah, that's like such a negative and dark way of thinking about things. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't trust your mother or your father or your sister to not steal your idea and copyright it,
Well,
you
no, I'm
know,
not saying that. I'm just saying energetically, you know, let's say you're sitting at a bar and you're telling someone about your plans of going to college and going to medical school and becoming a doctor. Um, some people don't want to share those details until they've actually gotten accepted into medical school,
mm,
you know?
okay,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
To
I don't
each
know.
their own. I guess for some people, like if they're superstitious or if they
Yeah.
would be embarrassed if they don't get in, and so they don't want and so if they don't want to bring it up just in case it doesn't work out. I mean, I guess there's lots of reasons that people wouldn't want to share their plans until they have come to fruition.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think in general, like sharing each other's enthusiasm, sharing each other's like highs and lows is part of the human experience. Like when I feel high, when I'm happy, I want to share it with people I care about. When I feel low, I want to share it with people I care about so that they can, so I can, because I will feel better after talking it through,
Right.
you know? So I don't know. I think it's probably more normal and more healthy to discuss highs and lows with people as opposed
Right.
to kind of keeping that bottled up. But each their own, I guess.
I think, yeah, I think you should show both sides of your face, and of your of life, ups and downs. Because if you only share the good stuff, not the bad stuff, you're not you're not fulfilling the human experience. Exactly what you said. So to change it up, you missed a flight.
I did. Yeah, I missed a
You
flight. I was going to go see a friend, but I missed my flight. So I came home instead and did a Sherlock Holmes murder mystery in a box.
Oh my gosh! And is this a game? This is like an actual. Uh,
Yeah, it's like a game that comes in a box and it's like a murder mystery. Like there's like a little bit of a setup.
Multiple players or just for you?
You can do it with multiple players. I
Mhm.
think it's more intended for multiple players. However, I am home alone tonight. so So I'm doing it myself. And I've been watching I love like TV crime, like TV shows about like Law and
Mhm.
Order and
Oh, I
things like
love
that.
Law& and Order.
NCIS and Bones and all that stuff. So
Mhm.
and The Mentalist. So I've been
Okay,
like
you're basically
employing.
CBS's dream then.
Yeah, I know. I watch all that stuff. And so like I'm
NCIS.
applying all those things that like I hear the police officers talking about in the shows. I'm applying it to my case. Notice how I call it my case. So like there was a murder. I'm like, you have a big map in this game, and there was like a murder in like one
Right.
area of the map, and so I got to a point where I was stuck, and I was like, you know
Mhm.
what? I was like, I should canvas the area. Like I should go to that corner of the map, and I should like look at the buildings that are around it, and go like visit those buildings and see if anyone saw anything. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna canvas the area. Like I've heard that word before. I'm gonna go do that.
You're like, "I'm a
like
real detective now."
I know. I felt I had moments where I was like I felt like I had actually learned something from the hours of TV that I have watched.
You're gonna be a PI now.
I know, I know, I
I
know. I
I
hope
think
that'd be so cool.
I think, well, that's going with the whole theme of human experience. I think that's why people like true crime. I don't think it's the gore and actually if you watch a lot of this true crime, they don't show ever bodies or any of this stuff. It's that who done it, the discovery, that mystery solving factor that we as humans kind of want to have inside of us. We like want to solve this. We want to know,
I love it.
yeah, we
I
want to know
love
who did
puzzles
it.
and
Yeah.
riddles. Yeah, I love all puzzles and riddles. And so solving a murder for me is just an extension of like any other puzzle or riddle to solve. I don't especially like the fact that it's like like gruesome or morbid or
Right.
macabre. Like those things I
I don't.
don't
Yeah, I don't like
don't
that.
sway it from don't make me more interested. I'm simply interested in at baseline because it's a puzzle or a riddle just in a new and different form.
Yeah, exactly. It's that discovery, it's that mystery solving
I know. I just wish
part
I had
of
a better
our
memory
identity.
because
Yeah.
like I learn clues and then I immediately forget them.
Hey,
and
that's
I'm like,
fine because
"Oh,
you can play the same game over and over again, you
I
won't even notice.
I know. I literally have done that. I have played the same escape room, which normally you can only do them one time because then
Right.
once you know how to solve it. But I played them like a year apart, and like my my friends were like, "Aren't you going to remember?" And I'm like, "Guaranteed, no. Like guaranteed, I will be the least helpful player at this group, even though I'm the only one who's done this game from beginning to end in the past.
Hey,
And
it's like me, it's trying to find my keys every day is like a freaking escape
oh,
room.
oh my gosh, oh my
I
gosh, I
actually have,
know.
an air tag, one of those Apple tag thingies on my keys because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I'm like, I misplace them all the time. One time I put them in the fridge. I have no idea how it got in there.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That was like an episode of The Cosby Show, like from the
Oh, where?
80s. Like
Mhm.
Rudy, the youngest daughter, um, she loses her book report and she can't find it anywhere in the house. And so her dad, Bill Cosby, in the
Mm.
show, like makes her recreate her like steps that afternoon,
Oh, I
like
remember
picking
this.
up and holding, like she's holding the book report. She leaves her room holding the book report. That much she remembers. And then she remembers that like, oh, her friend calls, so she picks up the phone, but then the dog runs by, so then she
Mhm.
has to drop, so she dropped something to get the dog, and then so he walks her through all the steps of like what she did, and eventually they find the book report in the freezer because she went to get ice cream and had like something else in her other hand, and so she put her book report in the freezer to get the ice cream out of the freezer.
Oh my god. How
So
do you remember
you
this? Did you just watch
something
it
probably very
recently?
similar. You were getting something out of the refrigerator and you put your keys in to free up your
Oh,
hand.
absolutely, and I'm sure, like, I got a phone call at the same time because. And how do you know about what did you just watch this episode recently of The Cosby Show?
No. I just remember it because I thought it was very like appropriate and very fitting and like a very smart way of finding something. So that one stuck with me. Um
That's weird how you say you have a bad memory, but then you pull a random episode from the 1980s out of your hat.
I know. I know. I don't know. Who knows how the brain works? But that episode connected to my memory because it was about
Wow.
memory.
Maybe, that's
Perhaps.
yeah.
Who knows?
Well, I think it's also long term and short term. Like, I remember things more vividly, like, from the freaking '90s than I do yesterday, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
that's just weird
Yeah.
how things maybe and also, like, watching old movies. Have you noticed that, um, movies from, like, the late '90s, early 2000s, this is 20 years ago, 20 or 25 years ago, some 30 years ago. It doesn't feel that long ago when I watch these movies. It feels like maybe 5, 10 years, not even,
Yeah. No,
you
same for
know?
me. Same for me because they were in, you know, they were in my lifetime. And so for me, it just feels normal to rewatch them. It doesn't feel like, I don't feel like I'm dating myself when I rewatch these movies from 30 years ago. I just feel like yeah, it still feels like modern, like present day for me when I rewatch these old movies like from the 80s, like Terminator and
Yeah.
things like that.
I guess because 'cause they're in well, I wouldn't say they're in our adulthood, but I guess the 2000s anything in the 2000s for me is like yesterday. It's all one kind of I would say between before 2010 and after 2010. After 2010, everything for me is the same. And then things changed also with technology. So, like, Facebook was a big one and iPhone. So, yeah, around 2010, that's when, you know, my memories have changed differently with I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I have such a strong fondness for for things from the 80s and the 90s. Like
Oh,
really
me
all
too.
things, like fashion, movies, music. Like I'm like one of those people who can't seem to move on from the
No,
80s
you're not
and
alone.
the 90s.
I think we're the majority, and it's especially for our age, because things have gotten so poop with music sucks. Let's be honest. Um,
Mm,
I think other than a couple of artists here and there, you can't compare the music. 80s and 90s was just bang on, you know?
yeah, it's so funny.
But
Yeah, I was looking at this list of like the 20 richest singers
uh-huh.
in, I guess, in the United States.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are like old, like, in their
Right.
60s, 70s, and because they've had decades and decades and
Mhm.
decades of albums and concerts to like amass these fortunes.
Right.
but by far the youngest person on the list is Taylor Swift, and
Oh,
she's
yeah.
at this list. This is she's number three, the third
She
richest.
just became a billionaire just from this one tour that
And
she's done.
she and she on the list, she is the only singer who has made their money exclusively from singing,
Right.
not from doing movies or like perfumes, you know.
Perfumes, yeah, or the cosmetics is a big one.
Yeah, or clothing lines. So she's the only one. So it's interesting. She's the youngest and she is, let's say, the most pure art. Yeah, she has made her money in the most, I guess, pure way as an artist
Hey,
to
listen,
just sing.
I love Taylor Swift. I saw her in 2010 in concert. She's great. But in general, the music right now kinda blows.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, I still
fans
like the
her 'cause she's
80s.
great, and she's, she
Yeah.
brings a lot of joy to people, and I love her music. It's still it still needs, I mean, there's not much more, like, there.
Oh, so speaking of, I just looked up tickets to see Adele in
Mm.
Vegas because she's
Oh, yeah.
performing in Vegas. Now, I was just curious as to how much they cost.
Like
And I was like,
$6,000 or some shit.
yes. I was like, oh my God. I was like, these tickets are probably going to be expensive. Like $800 or $900 is like in my mind what I was thinking,
Yeah.
like is like an expensive concert ticket, for 2.5 hours of
Yeah.
singing. Yeah, you're right. They start at $4,500
Yeah, things
and
are
they
out of
go up
control.
to about $9,000.
I think it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, and this is why Taylor Swift has probably became a billionaire just from music, because it's people
I
have
mean, but
taken loans out, or for her, my nephew did this with his girlfriend. He went to Spain to see her in concert because it was cheaper to get the flight, the hotel,
no.
and the tickets, yes, in Spain, than it was to buy them in the US. The
Oh my
US To
gosh.
buy tickets in the US is absolutely insane.
I mean, I couldn't like I couldn't believe how expensive it was. And there
I
was a
could, yeah.
YouTube video of her concert like in Vegas where in the front row, like so like the
Yeah,
$9,000 seats, there's a child.
right.
Someone bought a $9,000 ticket for like their 9-year-old.
That's just showing wealth, you know?
And like,
It's all
it
about wealth
definitely
though
interacts
in
with the
the
kid. But
yeah.
like, I mean, so much money for your 9-year-old
Oh,
kid
of
to go see
course.
Adele.
I know. Yeah, but
I mean, I just don't like. I just don't understand. Like, I would never. I would rather retire 2 months early or 3 months early and
I
and
feel like
save
there's
that
such a
$9,000.
disparity of wealth right now. Yes, 100 years ago, there was a lot of more, poor people, and we've gotten a lot of people out of poverty worldwide, but there's a lot more rich people too, and it's creating a huge difference in communities and in countries, because there's a lot of rich people and there's a lot of poor people, and there aren't many middle class people. The people in the middle are being stretched either in both ways. Some are either they're getting rich or they're getting poor.
Yeah. Well,
And the
Trump
real,
contributed. I
yeah,
mean, I hate Trump. Trump contributed to that divide
yeah,
by significantly lowering
the
the
tax burden, yeah,
yeah, the like for the wealthy, like the corporate tax burden and the capital gains tax, which
mm.
he significantly made the wealthy wealthier.
No,
And like we're not
and
talking
COVID
like
made everyone rich,
billionaires. We're talking people who make like people who make
right,
who have just kind of your average millionaire now
right,
is much wealthier.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it isn't like we're only talking about the top 30 people in the country who got richer. No, it's like,
yeah.
he's creating this divide, this monetary divide.
I wanted to kind of chat off the cuff about the imposter syndrome and some of these self-esteem issues. Not just for me. I mean, I feel like a lot of people, other than you, maybe go through this. Kristen was born with confidence and no fear. This is something I don't know if you want to tell the audience, but this girl
You're so funny.
she has no fear. There's actually, like, you're a doctor, there's a condition, right? When you have a low threshold for fear? Isn't that like a real disorder?
I don't
I
know.
think I think you might have that.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I definitely do feel fear, but
I don't know
it's a
about
low.
that.
I mean, yeah, it's not that much.
Have
I
you
mean,
done skydiving yet?
yeah, yeah, a couple times.
There you go. What about bungee cord jumping?
Yeah. Oh, from the
Okay.
tallest one in the world.
Oh my
It
god. You
from
see,
from from the Guinness Book of World Records.
it doesn't affect you, any of this stuff. And what did you
I mean,
feel?
I
Like
was scared.
tingling, like
I was scared when I
tickling?
was
That was
bungee jumping, but I still did it. Like, for me,
Well, wait.
actually,
What did you actually feel when you were scared?
so
Like gas? Like
gas, like
I mean,
farting?
what's the actual physical manifestation of your fear?
So when I jumped off, when I bungee jumped, it was not planned. It was um but um but it was sort of an impromptu thing, but it was from the tallest bungee jump in the world. It was in South Africa. And I got out to the place where you have to jump, and like your feet are tied together and people carry you to
Oh
the edge
lord.
of this ledge, because you can't walk because your feet are
Right.
bound together. And then they say, like, dive head first off this bridge. And I was like, I was like, okay. And then they ask you, if you don't dive head first off this bridge, do we have the right to push you?
Wow.
And I was like, yes, you do. Because some people want to do it, but like the instinct,
Oh, I
it
would
just
need to
goes
get pushed. I
to
would need
dive head first. And so I watched my friend that I was doing it with do a perfect swan dive. Like,
Hmm.
it's on CD. Do a
Well,
perfect swan dive head first off of it. And then I watched myself on the video later
it was
on.
ugly.
I went down for the swan dive, and then I went up, and then I stopped. And then the man behind
Okay.
me pushed me off. So, like, I mean, I have fear,
It's like,
I have
go.
fear. But when I
Okay,
was
so
falling,
how can
mm,
bungee cord jumping be healthy? Or
I
I
don't
mean,
know. Is it
I
healthy? I don't know.
how does how wait a second. How does it work? Why doesn't it like literally when you stop, why doesn't it pull the freaking, you know, legs out of the socket?
Well, because
Uh
it's a very elastic cord. So
it's very
the
elastic
cord.
cord, but you're aren't you there isn't there's still I see some of these they get yanked and they go boom and they I mean there's a lot of trauma going on to the body, right?
I don't know about a lot of trauma, but I mean, the place, I don't know. I honestly don't know the statistics of injuries during bungee jumping, but the most places, they ask you your weight, and they make sure to adjust the length of the cable so that there is no
Mm,
way that you will hit the bottom.
mm,
And plus they have a huge margin of error built in anyway.
mhm,
Um and so, like, yeah, so it didn't hurt at all. Like, the cable
okay.
is so elastic
You
that when
didn't
I
feel like it was pulling it?
no, it didn't
Oh,
hurt.
okay.
I mean, also I was terrified, so, like, if there was a little bit of pain, the adrenaline surging through my body
I've never seen you
covered
terrified. I don't think
covered that was the scariest. That's the most scared I've ever been. Because, like,
really?
you're falling, like, skydiving, you feel like you're floating, you feel like you're flying. You cannot appreciate how quickly you're falling when you're skydiving, because you're just so high up that,
Right.
like, the ground is so low, so far below you, that you just can't appreciate how fast you're falling. But when
Yeah,
you're
like,
a bun
planes, I don't have an issue. I can look out the window, all that stuff. But then you get onto the, 20th floor, and looking down makes me dizzy, so that's
Well,
probably
yeah,
what
I mean, because honestly, like, the higher up you are, like skydiving, it's almost easier,
right.
because, like, you don't really see
You don't see
the
distance
you
anymore.
don't see this exactly. You can't perceive like changes in distance nearly as well as you can when you're closer to the ground,
Oh,
which
and
is
we're
what
also
you are when
judging
you're
it
bungee
to, like,
jumping.
other buildings, so I know how tall that is because of other buildings, but when you're above everything, you don't see yeah,
Yeah, it feels like you're floating. But
Right.
bungee jumping definitely feels like you're falling head
Mm.
first to your death.
Oh, shit. Oh
Like
my
it
god.
definitely feel like, and you're going head first. Like when you're skydiving, normally like you're on your tummy, like you're,
Right,
like
yeah.
you're on your stomach with an arched back, and but here when you're bungee jumping, you're head first,
And
and
you
so
have to
like
go head first? You can't
yeah,
do it
because
any
your
other way?
head, that's just the way. Well, because they want you to go head first because they
What
want
if
your
you
feet.
jump, like right, right,
If you
you might get
fuck it up and
tangled.
you jump, I think probably, I don't know what would happen if you jump wrong. Probably you would get
Not
righted. Probably you would get righted in the air because for most people, our upper body is head. Well, for most people, our upper body is heavier than our legs,
mm.
so our upper body would probably fall faster. And so I think you would correct in the air.
Hmm. Ugh. I don't think I'm gonna
Yeah,
do it now. I feel like I'm too old now. I'll get
yeah,
inflammation.
yeah.
I mean,
But
do old people do this, or is this just a
I don't know. I'm sure old people do everything. Like
They do.
George W. Bush, remember the old
Right.
president? He went skydiving when he
Yeah.
was like in his 80s.
I think I would
Um,
skydive before bungee jumping.
yeah, I think you would like skydiving more. I mean, I think you would like neither of them, if I'm being quite honest. This coming from the guy who, when we wanted to go snorkeling, you didn't want you just waded into the water up to your waist and then bent over and looked.
I thought that was what snorkeling was. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, you just kinda look at the
Oh,
fishies underneath.
so funny.
I
Oh,
mean,
it's so
what
funny.
what more there's nothing more to it. You
Yeah, I
know?
mean, apparently you can see some fish from 6 feet off the coast, bent over. So
That's
as
it. You
opposed
can't
to swimming with them, not quite the same experience as swimming with them, but yeah,
that's true. No. I gotta do it again then.
yeah.
Anyway. Alright, lovely. Well, it was nice having you on another episode, and, yeah, let's, do it again, and, I hope you catch this plane tomorrow.
Thank you, thank you. Try if you don't succeed, try again.
Try, book and book again.
Book and book again. I'm contributing to the American economy.
Yeah,
All right. Okay. Well, it was so nice chatting with you. And yeah, as always, such a pleasure.
likewise. Anyway, if you like this episode, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Right. If you or someone you know are in crisis and need help, please reach out to a caring professional at SAMHSA's National Helpline by calling 1 800 662 HELP. That's 1 800 662 4357. Or you can simply text 988 on your phone. More information can be found by going to findtreatment.gov. That's findtreatment.gov. The information provided on this podcast are opinions and are for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not substitute professional medical advice. Consult a medical professional or healthcare provider to seek medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.